This podcast is also sponsored by Kadan. Kadan is a new groupage app that allows you to share space within a shipping container so that you can save costs when it comes to your logistics and transportation. Visit kadan.com to learn more, or visit the Instagram page Kadan Official. Evening, everyone. This is Malobi from the Kadan podcast. And today I have a special guest, Hera. She will tell me how to pronounce her last name because I don't want to get it wrong. And today we're going to be going back to the solid mineral space. For those of you that have requested this a lot. And Hera has a very interesting sort of career in the space, and we just want to dig into that and see what we can learn from it. So Hera, good evening, and how are you doing today?
Hi, Malobi. Good evening. I'm very well, thanks. Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's an honor to be here. Thanks very much. And you pronounce very well, so thanks.
Oh, thank you. How do you say your last name?
Mpondo.
Mpondo. And where's that from?
It's from Cameroon.
Oh, Cameroon. So my neighbor. So
yes, exactly, just right next door.
Okay, so because you speak French, so I'm assuming you're from the eastern side of Cameroon. Whereabouts in Cameroon are you from?
I am from Douala, which is the economic capital.
You just mentioned that you're from Douala, so I'm assuming you were born there and then you moved out of the country, and now I understand you're in London, right? So can you tell us a little bit about how you grew up and your sort of where you studied and then how you ended up?
Yes, sure. So essentially, I was born in France. So administratively, I was born in France, but essentially I grew up in Cameroon, Douala. So I grew up, regular childhood in Douala, private Catholic school. So I've had a scientific background from the very early stages of my life in Douala. So my A level was actually in math. We called that C, the C series at the time. So it was a predominantly mathematics, physics, etc. So eventually I moved to France to complete my A level and then start university. So started studying math, physics, and then a few years in my bachelor, I decided to move on to applied mathematics because this was my main area of interest. I liked physics, but not as much as I did like math. So this has led me to do applied mathematics as a major, which literally opens you the door to anything around modeling, financial modeling, whether it's probability statistics, and these sort of things. And you also have a strong economic component because it's very much geared towards applying mathematics to social sciences. So following that, I did a master's in financial modeling in France still, which I completed with a specialized master later on in IT architectures and financial modeling and quantitative finance, basically. So the reason for that was that I graduated around the subprime crisis, right? So there were literally no jobs around. People were just doing internship after internship. Sometimes they were not even paid. You could do it 6 months internship, renew 3 times. There were literally no jobs. And at the time, because I intended to become a quantitative analyst, and at the time, because of the nature of the subprime products, which was very much a lot of mathematicals, models, it was no longer trendy to be a quant. So they were still needed, but yeah, for me to get a job in that field at that time was a bit difficult. So I went after I did my master's. I went back to do a specialized master's, which is very specific to France because they call it specialized because they are the sort of master that really adapt to the economic context. So if the market needs more risk managers at the moment, so they will release agreements for risk management training, which I did because At the time, they needed risk managers because of the consequences of the subprime crisis. So what was happening at the time was many of my peers were moving into other fields within finance. Some of them became advisors at banks, so things like that. So to me, it sounded a bit weird to have done all these years of quantitative modeling and then advising people, would open the bank account. Nothing wrong with that, but it was completely derailing me from what I studied. And I knew, being in France, where people are not really open to reorientation, career changing, that it would have been hard for me to come back to this field later on. So I decided to wait a bit, another year, go back to school, take a degree that would help me to adapt to the market and respond to what the market needed at the time, which is why I moved on to do specialized master. So when you look at my CV, it sounds like I have too many masters, but there was a reason for that. I didn't want to end up.
How many in total?
Wow, 2 masters and an MBA. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's another
impressive.
master's that I did later on. So I come to that later, but
Okay.
yeah, there is always a reason for everything that I've done at school. So after that, I think I was proven right, because following that, I was able to get my first internships very quickly and my first job. So what happened at the time was that when you study finance and economics, you'd study a lot of finance around banking, products, shares, etc. And there was nothing around commodities. And then there was this optional module back then. I can't remember if it was optional or mandatory, but again, it was called Commodities and Energy. And the guy was really interesting. It opened us to, how you process, oil from the moment you get it from out of the ground to how you transform it and all the uses. I was so fascinated. And at that time I decided this is what I want to do. I want to work in the commodities. I don't care. Could be oil, gas, mining. I like things that are very linked to something that's real. It was a real application because modeling the behavior of interest rates or shares is very abstract to me. I like to touch the product to know that is something that has an end use. So following my second master's, I just went on to do this internship in the famous French company. So I ended up on the options desk, doing studying volatility for gas markets, liquefied natural gas, a little bit of oil, and emissions. So I was a trader's assistant, doing anything from modeling to running their risk management reports, to monitor a little bit of the positions, etc. So that was my first job in the commodities area. And eventually, I was called by a French consultancy company to become a commodities consultant. So I think I had made the right choice to delay the job search by a year to really make sure that my profile fit what I wanted to do in life. And then consultants were very popular again at the time because banks were not hiring. They would prefer the flexibility of the consultants, so they didn't have to give a permanent contract for jobs. So I was very fit for the market at the time. So I spent about 4 years consulting for various banks in France, insurance companies. Because what I forgot to mention was that during my internship times, what I was after my first master and my second one, I did a couple of internships in the actuarial sciences as well. So eventually becoming a consultant, I had a double profile. I could work in insurance or finance with that analytical component. So they pretty much used me in all of these areas. So my projects were quite diverse. So I could do 1 month helping to set up a trading floor for 6-8 months, then moving on to another project within an insurance company, etc. So it took me, a bit outside of France, in Belgium, to London, which was nice. But I did realize that my profile was becoming a bit too diversified. So the expertise that I was trying to build was being derailed by me being sent to various projects around around finance. And so I wanted to put things back together again. So at the time I decided to go back to school and study again. So I heard about this degree in Switzerland called the Diploma of Advanced Studies in Commodity Trading. And the good thing at the time was that after for almost 5 years into my career, I also wanted to, I was contemplating doing an MBA. And what happened was that the University of Geneva was proposing MBAs as well. And you could take the DAS, the Diploma of Advanced Studies, as a specialization of an MBA. So I said, oh, that's perfect. So I can, I can get two for the price of one. So that was pretty nice to have. So again, I went through a selection process because it was highly selective. And I didn't want to miss my spot in the DAS in commodity trading in the second year. So I delayed that, knowing that starting with the MBA would guarantee my spot the second year. So this is the process that I follow. So very much calculated again to make sure that I was going to get that degree, because my goal was to really specialize in commodity trading, not only from the experience that I've had, but also having a degree that says you are specialized or you are an expert in this. So at the time I was a consultant and I was also doing my MBA, which meant I had to fly pretty much every week to Switzerland. And I was on a project in Brussels at the time, so I had to fly end of the week all the time to Geneva to sit down in class. I did it for about 2 years, which is the duration of the MBA. Very challenging, but all worth it at the end. Because upon graduating, I think it was even a couple of months before I had my official graduation ceremony that I get this call from this big mining company in London to come and work for them. So again, the sacrifice has paid. So you can see there is a pattern in there, delay, gratification, sacrificing a bit of time and social life, and then eventually getting where I wanted to go. So this is how I ended up in mining, because coming from oil, gas, or an oil and gas background, when I was sitting, in these MBA classes, I was thinking, I want to change. I no longer want to do energy. I want to move to agricultural trading, and I want to trade rice and coffee beans and things like that. Mining was never in my mind. But again, when you sit in class, you have to study mining anyway, because you have the particularity of these degrees that they really cover everything that has to do with commodity trading, whether it's risk management, trading, how to finance trading activities, shipping, laws, legal aspects of trading and shipping, absolutely everything, even operations, so that you can literally exercise any job in the commodity chain upon graduating. So because it has opened me to all of this, I thought, yeah, I had to study mining, but that's not really my interest. I want to go to agricultural products. And then eventually I got this call from London, and I said, why not? It's only for 4 months anyway. Then 4 years later, I was like, oh, I'm still here. And then I've been around. I've been there for 8 years now. So, so just to tell you how hooked I was, because upon joining, I was working as a risk manager for on the trading floor, looking after thermal coal. So I was managing traders' thermal coal positions, looking at the profit and loss every day, doing a little bit of projects, and also new systems implementation and such a thing. So that was the good thing about not working for a big trading floor is that you can literally touch anything. Whereas if I had been on a trading floor on a more on a classic bank, I would have been limited to my perimeter. So because the company is a mining company, not a trading company, they happen to have a trading desk. So all the risk managers really had to be very transversal. So starting with coal, it was new to me. So another challenge, I really had to learn how it worked. So this has led me to also have be lucky enough to visit their operations down in South Africa. I've been to the mines. I've had the opportunity to travel to South Africa, to Singapore, so which was absolutely great for such a position, which I know wouldn't have been the case in a different company. So I think all of this actually led me to stay a bit longer because it was a great company to work for. And the core of the business was really to do mining first, and then the trading arm, which sells the product, is a business unit within the company. So coal, I did thermal coal for a few years, and I started, looking around at what my next step, could be. So I was contemplating moving to a trading position, so moving from risk management to trading. So I took advantage of job rotation opportunities. So I have been a platinum trader for for a few weeks to explore what that means and really see if that's really what I wanted to do, because there was a close proximity between the coal desk, the precious metals desk, base metals, etc. And this is the type of company that actually allows you to explore this type of opportunity, so you can gain exposure to other products. Because working as a risk manager, you have to. Only was I, working with thermal coal, but if I had to cover for a colleague or work on a different project, I also had to open my mind to all the commodities, whether it was precious metals, platinum group metals, for instance, or base metals such as copper or nickel or things like that. So after I've explored all of these opportunities, I was thinking of really making a good use of my MBA, because at this point, I was basically just using the Diploma of Advanced Studies in Commodity Trading part of my training, because I was doing risk management, working with products, etc. But having graduated from an MBA, I've always wanted to move into more strategic subjects. So I started to contemplate a position in strategy teams. So I reconsidered my willingness to do trading, and a deep introspection led me to move on to a strategy team. So I moved to a different business unit, which is the diamond arm of the company, and is actually the world leader in diamonds. So I was lucky enough to be able to get a spot in the company and in the strategy team, because this type of teams, we know strategy teams are very elitist. It's very difficult to get into. So I was fortunate enough to get a position as an analyst, where I started as strategy and senior forecasting analyst doing business planning. So my role was basically to look at the future, look at what the prices and the level of sales will be in the next, let's say 5 years, and then present that to the leadership teams for decision making. More recently, my remit has changed a bit, because I've moved to really full strategy subjects, because now my role title is Senior Strategy Analyst, meaning I no longer do business planning, but now my role is to support the business and our executives in their decision-making process by providing all sort of analysis, so robust and thorough analysis that give a view or picture of the future, so that it drives decisions across the business. This is what strategists do every day. So here's the difference between, you know, my previous risk management role, which is which was very much anchored in the past or in the present, looking at, you know, what's your P&L today, the position that you've taken yesterday, this is the value, and this is what's going to happen. What are you going to do today, or how are you going to trade it? And then the next day you start again. Whereas with strategy, you really have to shift your mindset and look at the future. What are the trends, whether it's, you know, mining trends or also macroeconomics, what's going on in the market at the moment, where is this going, and what does that mean for us? So my mindset has changed a little bit. So now I'm very much geared towards the future of the company and the future of the world, basically. So which gives me another perspective in life. So I'm able to use my mathematical modeling background, because I have to build models, because without models you cannot really project. So you have to have some sort of basis in your analysis, and then you apply your own intelligence and your own insights and market intelligence as well, to kind of make sense of the numbers. So I'm able to use those analytical skills to, you know, set up my analysis, build my tools, or make use of the tools that exist already. I get to use my finance and economics background, because what you do as a strategy person is that you absorb basically what everyone gives you. So you need to work with various departments across the company, market intelligence people being the first one, because they're going to feed you with, you know, all the fundamentals of what's going on. You are quite transversal, so you need to work with, you know, people from, you know, upstream, whether it's a mine or geologists that are going to give you a view of what the supply will look like. You need to work with the midstream, which is the trading arm of the company. You need to work with the downstream as well, because they are the business unit basically that sells the diamonds, the finished product. So you are this sort of sponge that absorbs everyone. So you really make use of all this, you know, all these skills, analytical skills, to really present something that makes sense and that gives your leaders the ability to make decisions for the company. So this is the perfect spot for me, because I'm able to use all of that, whether it's mathematical background, commodity background, mining background, and then apply that all into diamonds. So obviously, I didn't know anything about diamonds before moving in. I'm from a commodity trading background, and because diamond is not considered as a commodity, so in terms of the product itself, I have had to learn a lot. So there was an entry cost to that, but I definitely had transferable skills from my previous life as a risk manager, you know, to be able to hold my role today. So that's a little bit of, you know, of my background for, you know, what I studied and how I ended up where I am today. So hopefully I've covered everything.
Yeah, you literally have. What's amazing is that, like, as you say something, I think, okay, I'm going to ask her about that. And then the next sentence, you answer my question already. So this is amazing. Like, you've done half of my work for me. This is amazing. Okay, but I still do have a few questions. And this is a really, really interesting journey you've been on. You know, not many people get to go you know, from you know, France to London to Geneva to obviously Douala, etc. I want to learn stuff, or just, you know, if it's not a business thing, you know, why did you end up staying in London? Like, what is it about London that made you choose, okay, this is where I'm most comfortable for now?
Yeah, that's a good question, because I think the main difference between these countries or any countries is the cultural aspect. So obviously I've spent most of my life in France and I've worked there. So the cultural environment is very much different. You know, in London, for instance, we come to work to get things done and then we go home. We don't necessarily try to make friends, etc. It can happen, but people are very much, you know, work orientated. Whereas in France, you know, it's a bit different. You take time to also socialize with people at work, having longer lunches, for instance. So the cultural aspects is different, but I like when things just get done and not being, doing the gossip. It's nice, but it's different. But I think the main element for me was being able to change gears whenever I want. And I think the Anglo-Saxon culture is more suitable for that, because in France, considering I have studied mathematics for modeling, I would have been stuck to doing that pretty much my entire career. So changing or moving to a commodities business would have been much harder. Even though I had a little bit of background, again, remember my experience was diluted from doing consulting. So to be able to move full-time into a commodities environment, not only is very competitive because the size of the market is very small. How many trading companies do you have in Paris? Very few. You have some gas companies, maybe one oil company where everyone. You have a lot of people competing for very few companies. And it's actually funny because everyone knows everyone. If you've been a consultant in France in the commodity area, whenever you change clients, you meet at least two or three people that you've met in a different company before. This is how small the market is. So to me, there was a lot of competition. So that was the first thing. So moving to Switzerland what's particular about this market is that it's the only market where all the roles that exist in the commodity trading industry are represented. It's such a small town, but you have only in Geneva over 400 trading companies, whether they're small or big. So it's a market where you can, you can choose between, being a race manager or a trader or anything. Everything is represented in this market, and which is why they had this. That's because they have the master equivalent for that, and they also have certificates for if you want to become, let's say, a trader or a trading operator. There is a certificate for that. So they basically have everything, every training for every single job in the market. So it's very much tailored. So it's the particularity of this place, which is why upon graduating, my first intention was to look for a job there, because I had graduated from a degree that was very much tailored to this market. And because I had covered all the chain, I knew that I would have had a choice, and that I wouldn't be limited to only do risk management or analytical stuff. So if I wanted to move into operations or trading, I had more chance to do so. But again, there is a trick. It's not the most transparent market. So let's say you're looking for a job in the UK. You see a job advertisement, you apply, you send your CV. Eventually, you're going to be called because it's just out there, right? Whether it's headhunters or the companies directly. In Switzerland, it doesn't work like that. The jobs that you see that are advertised are not the actual jobs that are not all the jobs. It's not even 20% of it. So you need to know people. So you need to network a lot. And being in this kind of degrees, because remember there is a master equivalent, but what I did was the executive version, meaning that you will be around people who are already on the market. They've been on the market for 10, 20 years. So besides studying together, this is also your network. So whenever you're going to be looking for a job, these are the first people you're going to be contacting. So you have to have that element if you want to get a job in Geneva. Of course, you can still apply to classic canals, but it's very specific. It's a market of experience or who you know, and you need to have very good relationship with the headhunter. So sometimes, even when I wasn't looking for a job, I would send an email to a headhunter, say, "Oh, do you have time for a meeting or a coffee?" Just to know what's going on the market, because they hear everything. What's going on in this company? Why are people moving? Don't go there. I think all the good ones are gone. So, you really have to stay in the know. Whereas in London is a lot more open. There is a lot more transparency. So France, less choice. Same in Belgium is even tighter. But Geneva, more opportunities, but you need to be in the know, you need to network a lot. And London, big markets, big, all opportunities are there. All you have to do is apply and try your luck, basically. So I think this is why I ended up, in London. The culture works better with, the way I see, with my way of working, and also because the market is also, it's more open to people like me with a diverse background and potentially want to career change, because only a degree will not be sufficient in other countries. You need to double that with experience. London is more open to that. So yeah, that's why I ended up picking up. But I have had great experiences in all these countries, don't get me wrong. This is where I started. Belgium was awesome, but I needed more because I needed to be more challenged, and I needed a market where there was more companies, more commodity trading companies available for me to apply for, which wasn't the case for both France and Belgium. And yeah, and Geneva, the process would have been potentially been longer, because it's funny, because many of the interviews, job interviews that I had in Geneva, I was recommended by someone. I didn't apply, online or anything. So you come to an interview and they will ask you, what is it that you want to do? And if your profile is interesting, they might just create a role for you. It's not systematic, but this can happen. So this is how long a process can take there. So I wouldn't mind going back now. I've gained, a lot of experience abroad, but, trying to go back to, to a full-time commodity role, I think it would have been much harder for me there to get the role that I wanted. I could have started, I could have gotten a job, but potentially not exactly where I wanted to be. Yeah, so for all of these reasons, I think London works best for me.
It's a lot. And you mentioned something as well about a diverse background. I was going to ask, do you get to see a lot of people that kind of look like you, whether it be a lot of women or Black people or Black people of African origin? Because it's not something that you hear a lot about, even in my social circle. I don't know that many people in the sort of commodity trading space. Let me commodity in general, but even more into stuff like diamonds and stuff. So do you see
well, the short answer is no. So, well, just bear in mind, I come from a scientific background, right? So naturally, there are fewer women in those fields. So you see that much later in life when you start, working. You see, in those jobs, obviously, you cannot work on a trading floor in France if you have not done some sort of economics of mathematics or anything. You can work in a bank, but on a trading floor, on a trading team, or risk management, analytics, it's very difficult if you don't have some sort of scientific background. So obviously, when you look at the people who work there, they're a representation. They're good. They give you a good picture of people who graduated before, because there were fewer women naturally. So when it comes to ethnicity and ethnic diversity, it's even more true. So working I think it has changed a lot now, but specifically in banks. But when it comes to the commodity industry, it's still very true. So I work for a mining company. So obviously, when I go to work, I don't see a lot of people like me, even if there are a lot of efforts in that sense. So where I do see Black people, for instance, is where I go to South Africa, for instance. Lots of them at the mines, definitely. A few in the office, obviously, because you're in South Africa. But this is where you see, you realize that, oh, we're actually diverse. But when I come back to the headquarters, I don't necessarily see that. So fewer women. So I've always been, that's the story of my life. I've always been the only woman and the only Black person in my teams. So that's, yeah, I let you imagine the struggle. So in the risk team before, only women, only Black person. Today, I think I've got one lady who was Black, but she's not based in London. She's based in Southern Africa. So yeah, again, the industry still has to make diversity a reality, because we want to see more people of a different ethnicity, not only at the mines but also in the headquarters. So I always say that I want to see more people like me, because being in London, obviously, even when you start seeing a bit more of a diversity in the office, obviously potentially a Nigerian person, or maybe someone was in secondment from Southern Africa, and they're probably around for 2 years and then they will go back. But to see someone from Central Africa, French speaker, that it has never happened to me. So I really wish, whether it's in visiting the South African office, where I know in South Africa there's a big Congolese community, for instance. I know there are Cameroonians who live there. I've never come across anyone who has the same background as me in this industry. So yeah, we know it's very white male dominated. I mean, it's mining. It's that's the characteristic. But I really want to see more people like me, but and more ladies, and not only in areas where you typically find more women. I mean, like human resource and marketing. Nothing wrong with that, but I want to see more women or Black women in more scientific job, more strategy job, more risk management job. So yeah, but again, you need to look at the reality of the where people graduate from. How many women, how many minorities you have in those classes, and then how does it translate later into in the working world. So I think there is work that we need to do there. I know there are STEM programs, for instance, to encourage women on the African continent to embrace, scientific and technological careers. So that would be a good thing to have in place, because sometimes it feels lonely, really, really lonely. Yeah. So yeah, and as diverse as we are, we have people speaking Portuguese, Spanish, Italian, people coming from Australia, but I don't really speak French as the word, for instance. So yeah, so that's my wish for this industry, to see more diversity outside of the typical the hosting countries where we have our operations. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense, and like you said, in the beginning of it has to start in the beginning of the pipeline, right? Because if there's no people coming in from the university level, then it's not going to really manifest further down in like strategy and trading desks, etc. So it makes a lot of sense. You also mentioned this course, this diploma, and what I find really interesting is that there's a lot of these kind of courses in different industries, and they help you to kind of get jobs in these industries, and maybe sometimes as well just to find out where you want to fit in, because you mentioned the course covered everything in the whole commodities value chain. So sometimes these courses are good for people that are just trying to figure out what they want to do. So do you think would you recommend people to look into these kind of diplomas if they want to, or they're potentially interested in the space?
Yeah, I think it depends, first of all, of what you're trying to do with that degree. Doing this in Geneva, it's you realize when you're in Geneva doing this degree, you realize how popular this degree is. It's very selective. They receive 1,000 of applications every year. They only take 30 people, so it's highly selective, and they've done a great job at advertising that in the market. So that's why it's very specific for the market. So you know that coming out of this degree, there is a good chance that you're going to fit in the market, because it's tailored for that. But that's very specific to Switzerland. So anyone working, for instance, in London, you really want to assess what you want from this degree, because it's very generic. It covers a lot. But assuming you have a recruiter in London that doesn't know anything about this degree, they will tend to probably rely on your experience. That's the first thing, but also what you really are capable of. So sometimes you don't necessarily need to have graduated from somewhere to have a certificate to get a job in London. So depending on the market that you're targeting, it's going to be different. If you live in Switzerland, or you intend to move there, to get a job there, I would definitely 100% recommend that degree. This is what has opened me the door to this industry. But again, really assess where you're trying to go with this. It's definitely valuable, and I would always recommend it. But if you really want to assess, or maybe start, they have certificates, for instance, that where you have fewer modules, that will give you fewer credits, but they can count later. If you decide to take the full diploma, you can just aggregate all the modules that you've taken. They are valid for for a lifetime. So yeah, so really assess what your intentions are and which part of the chain you wanna work with. Some areas are much harder to penetrate than the others. Becoming a trader overnight is going to be very difficult. So my advice for people who have just graduated would be not to jump straight on getting a degree, but start to have experience as soon as possible. The minute you get you graduate, you get out of school, try to get this, because this is what they like to recruit, and this is something that I've noticed. Executives, they will have a much harder time to get a job in the commodity field if they are changing careers, because they consider that it's not, you have people, those people have 10, 20 years of experience. It's not easy to model them to the way the companies want. Whereas when you come out to school, they know that this is where they are going to poach. They're going to train them the way they want to fit to the company, what is the company's culture, the role that they want to have. So I think early on, try to have as much experience as you can, and eventually consider taking that executive degree. And meanwhile, take advantage of moving around the company, change jobs, for instance. Take advantage of job rotations opportunities, for instance, shadowing, these kind of things, or even mentoring. And then once you have cemented that, maybe go back and get one of these degrees to just cement your knowledge and have a paper that says you have it. But really, especially if you're willing to work in an Anglo-Saxon environment, just give the priority to your experience, to your exposure to certain subjects. Because the thing with the commodity industry is that it's not something that they teach at school. I've never heard anyone say, "Oh, I've got my master in trading," or my master, I don't know, in risk management. It does exist, but in diamond trading, for instance, that doesn't exist. People who are there, they really capitalize on experience. So whenever you join the company, you realize that people have been around for a long time, and the type of expertise that they have, you just don't find that everywhere. So it's not necessarily about the degrees, it's really about your exposure, your knowledge. So I would say for this particular field, just get as much experience as you can early on, and then get the degree. But if you're already an executive or someone who has had, an extended career, it's different. You may want to go to school and do it the proper. But if you're young, try and get into these companies as soon as possible, and then get this valuable experience that you can resell everywhere, and eventually get another degree to just, get that stamp.
Wow, that's really good feedback, actually. That I think a lot of people are going to benefit from that, because my mind was thinking, oh, just try and get the certificates and all that. But you're saying, try and get actual experience, and that's what a lot of employers and stuff are going to look at. So that's really good to know. This has been a really great conversation. I just want to round up by talking more about your understanding of the diamond industry. You can say anything maybe from on a macroeconomic level, or to really interesting facts that you didn't know about diamonds before you got into it. Just if you could just share from your years of experience working with diamonds, going to the mines in South Africa, any interesting insights on diamonds that people might not know, that we worth sharing with people.
Well, that's a very interesting question. I've discovered a lot moving into the diamond world, and I discovered that, such as other extractive mineral products, there are 50 shades of diamond. So there is not, because not knowing anything about diamonds, to me, a diamond is a diamond, it's just a stone, etc. Then I realized that there are very different types of diamonds. You heard about the 4Cs, so you classify your diamonds according to the color, clarity, the number of carats. So that's how you grade you grade your diamonds. For instance, you have the size, whether it's it's yellow, white diamonds, and this is how they're actually being valued. It's not only about the carat. There's a lot more that gives a value to diamonds. So this is something that I had to do, and I had to sit in I had to take a diamond foundation course to really wrap my head around that. I had to do a diamond sorting course, like sitting down with the magnifying glasses and the little tweezers to learn how we saw diamonds and classify them. So if you don't do that, you have a hard time representing yourself how this works. And this is rough diamonds only. So you need to learn how all the process from the mine to when it ends up to to your finger. So that was really interesting to learn that there is a diamond is not a diamond. There are different characteristics that makes a diamond. So that was one surprising thing. The second one was the lab-grown diamond. So how diamonds forms, they come from the ground. They've had they have gone through all these processes that has lasted thousands and thousands of years before, and people that can actually reproduce that in a few hours in the lab, and they look exactly like natural diamonds. So there is a huge market for that at the time, and I had no interest whatsoever in those things, and now my mind is completely open and looking at how they penetrate the market, and even the way they look, they're just as shiny as real diamonds. So that was really, really interesting to know, because now it's becoming mainstream, especially in countries like the United States. So that's really interesting. So you have the finished product, but you also have all the technology behind, because we have in-house technologies that actually help to make these diamonds become a reality, just coming out of the lab. So there is a lot of research and technology advancements that are really relevant to diamonds. So that was a whole new world for me. So that's very, very interesting. So again, it's just
you mentioned sorry, I was just going to say before I forget, you mentioned that diamond is not a commodity. Can you explain, because I thought it was a commodity, so maybe other people might think this.
I need to, because I have been yes, I have been told that everything that comes out of the ground is a commodity. So I joined the company saying, misusing the commodity word, and it was like, don't say that again. It's not a commodity. It's diamond. Yeah. So they forgave me, because I come from from the commodity world. So everything that's extractive, it's a commodity. So I guess it's because of the particularity of the product. So first, it's scarce, it's expensive, and there is not a market that is as liquid as what the coal market or platinum will be. So if you have a Bloomberg or a Reuters a terminal, you can literally see the current price, the live prices of all the commodities, but you will never see diamonds, because that's not how they are priced. So to me, a commodity is something that has a useful, everyday life. It's pretty much common, whereas diamond is something different. There are industrial applications for diamonds, but I think it's probably something around 10% of the diamonds that are produced. So in that sense, I think we can say that it's not exactly a commodity. And I get where they're coming from. And because if you start using that word, you just classify that as the same as any other products. So meaning potentially they will have the same value, the same sort of value. So the process is different, the pricing is different, the market's different, the use are different. So so it's just a separate category.
Wow, this has been amazing. The time has gone so quickly, and we just scratched the surface. And we normally try to keep it to
I haven't talked about sustainability in artisanal mining in Africa. So we need to have another one.
Yeah, no, 100%. There's got to be a part two. There's got to, because I didn't even realize. I thought this was something we could just do, like, quick conversation, but we haven't even begun. So, but I think this one. I think this part one has been good because I think it will help a lot of people that maybe are considering going into the industry, and insights from you and learning about the different, countries and the different particularities and, just learning a little bit about diamonds. So it's kind of a teaser. But yeah, we definitely need a part two. Sustainability, the mining, South Africa, how it affects the economy, all that. That's part of it. But thank you so much for this very interesting conversation. And please be aware, I will reach out to you again.
Definitely. Well, thanks so much for having me. It's been an honor. I've been following your podcast, and you're doing an amazing job. Just bringing some light to all these people working in the agribusiness, mining business. So it's amazing, and I love to see African people working in the extractive industry, in the agribusiness, and it really feels good to actually see people like me in this industry. So thanks for the job you're doing. It's really amazing.
Thank you as well. Thank you. Brilliant. Well, I'll leave you to enjoy the rest of your Saturday evening. Have a lovely time, and we'll speak again soon.
All right. Thanks so much. Have a good evening. Bye.
All right. Bye.